So first thing that you said, sales divide by clicks,
Mm-hmm.
that pretty much gives you dollar value of
Correct. Yep.
every click. Now,
Mm-hmm.
these sales are not your total sales, are they? They are your paid sales.
Correct. Yeah, these would be the sales per keyword. Sorry, I probably didn't clarify that. It'd be the amount of sales that the keyword is driving. So if you got that keyword and you're like, what should the bid for this keyword be? You're looking at the sales that keyword has attained that are, according to the advertising attribution, as well as, and then you divide that by the clicks, the amount of paid clicks that you achieved.
Okay. Now let's dissect a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Paid sales generated through sponsored products,
It
sponsored
applies
brand.
to, yeah, it applies to everything. Everything that's using a CPC model, whether you're doing sponsored brands, sponsored display, sponsored products, anything that's on a CPC model, cost per click model, you want to be looking at the revenue per click. And the reason for that, I think, should be, it should kind of click and make sense. But if your goal is to, if you're thinking about like your ACoS or your ROAS is a certain like spend to sales ratio threshold, then obviously on a cost per click platform where you're paying for every click, like all of that spend comes down to a click by click basis. You have to be trying to hit that threshold properly, basing it off of the sales per click or the revenue per click. So we're trying to kind of keep the spend and sales proportionally to where we're profitable or whatever your target kind of return on advertising is. And so we're trying to hit that on a click by click basis, which is how we use that to determine our actual keyword bids.
Okay. So that means that your paid sales combined across all campaigns, the total number of clicks generated through your paid sales, divide by your sales, divide by total number of clicks times ACoS, right? That's the number.
Yeah, that would be if you were looking at the revenue per click at like a total account level, which you can do too, and I do that a lot of the time too, to figure out what should kind of, that'll give you your average revenue per click for your whole advertising account if you're looking at
Right.
all of your campaigns combined. And from there, you can figure out what your average cost per click should be, again, for your whole account. And that can give you a good that's a good informational data point to figure out like what should my starting bids be. You can start there. That's a great way to kind of get that data. But I'm talking more specifically about drilling this down, taking the same logic down to the individual keyword data. So if you're ever looking at a specific keyword, you're doing this on like one keyword at a time, doing this same formula.
Okay. So, but not every keyword generates sales.
Exactly. So that's where we get into the that's exactly where we get into the question of what do you do with these low data scenarios?
So what happened was, so let's make this simple. Okay. You generated 10 clicks. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
make it a running sponsored product only.
Yeah.
You generated 10 clicks across
Mm-hmm.
5 keywords
Yeah.
and you generated $10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your revenue per click is $1, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Except that it's only 2 keywords that generated those sales.
Yep.
So now tell us, how do you apply this approach when you drill down at keyword level?
Yeah. So the way in which I like to do it, and there's really, at the end of the day, if you have a keyword with one click and no sale, is that good or is that bad? Like, I think that's the question. Before we actually dive into the answer, I want to ask a couple more questions. That's one. If it has one click and no sale, is that good or bad? Or 2 clicks and no sales, is that good or bad? I obviously it's neither good nor bad. Although what I think is it actually really depends on kind of what the bid is. If you have a couple of clicks, and let's just say they're spending $5 a click or $10 a click, it's only a couple of clicks, but obviously you're spending way too much if that on average you can't afford that because you're looking at that total account kind of level, and you should only be spending like $1. A $5 CPC is too much. So even if it's just one click and a $5 CPC, that one keyword's not killing you. But if you have 1,000 of those keywords, and they could even be much lower, right? They could just be spending 50 cents. But if you have enough of those non-converting keywords in aggregate, that's going to really start bleeding your account. And this is where I've seen a lot of folks actually run into issues is they just have, maybe in an account with like 1 million keywords, to pick something extreme, 10 of those keywords are doing really well, good volume, good sales. And the rest of them are all in this super low data scenario in which they only have one click and no sales, but cumulatively it's killing the account. So the way in which we're going to try to solve this problem is we need to come up with basically a reference or a benchmark revenue per click. And so here the challenge is, how can we find the most relevant revenue per click to this keyword that we can use as a reference and kind of use that as something that will be a safety rail, so that we're not, increasing these bids beyond what's actually affordable. So I think there's 3 ways to do that. And 2 of them are I'm not a fan favorite of. I really like the third option that I'll present to you. But the main 2 that people usually do is, number 1, they just go for a longer time frame. So if this keyword only has like a click and no sales or whatever, and they're thinking I need a longer date range, they'll start looking back to last 60 days, last 90 days, especially if they're connected to like some other third-party tool that's storing this data permanently. They can look back 6 months, something like that, to really try to extend that date range to pull in some data. The only issue there is when you start using those really, really long time frames, as great as they are for pulling in some extra data points, some additional clicks, they start tapping into other time frames that might not be super relevant data compared to the current period, especially if you have products that have seasons through Q1 and Q2, exactly. So I'm not a fan of that method, although that's one way. The second way is people will start looking to Seller Central metrics, and they'll start looking, at this, if this keyword is in an ad group with a specific product, they'll look at like Seller Central and start saying, well, what's the total kind of average conversion rate for this product, and try to pull that into calculate a bid. The only issue there is that the product's conversion rate and the data attached to that product, you can't really, if 100% of the traffic came to this product through branded search terms, it's going to seem like the conversion rate's really high, versus if it came from non-branded search terms, it'll seem like it's really low. You can't segment it out. So the third way that I like to do is, rather than looking backwards in time, like I think rather than extending like horizontally to try to pull in more data, or trying to like cut across a channel and kind of do some cross-referencing, I like to do what I call looking up. So instead of looking back, I like to look up, which is basically looking at the parent entity of that keyword, which in this case would be the ad group. And the ad group there in total is probably, in my estimation, going to be the best benchmark for reference for this keyword's data, because that ad group is going to be it's going to be containing all of the average order value and the average conversion rate for all the keywords in that ad group, as well as all the products in that ad group. And yeah, I'll kind of pause there to see if there's any questions on that so far.
Let's see. Okay, so you are looking at, so we're talking specifically conversion rate, but we are looking at keywords that generated clicks but didn't convert.
Correct. Yeah.
So the ad group itself will have a conversion rate, because some of the keywords would have converted. So how do you determine, because it's 0 against something, so 0 will always lose.